First of all, I just want to seize the opportunity to present the people sitting here. I will very rapidly get you guys to talk to and ask everybody who speaks to introduce themselves, because it's an important thing. From my side, I would like to say Guido introduced himself. I happen to be an economist interested in sustainability. I'm from Switzerland. I spent my youth in Tuscany, so it's always very beautiful to be here. And I believe that Tuscany has a certain heritage of cultural and intellectual creativity, which is not completely dead by now, although it was a bit more flourishing a couple of centuries ago. But here in Lucca, you guys keep going. Thank you for this. We stick to the Mediterranean for a moment, but then we go to the Atlantic, because Luis comes from Portugal, even if now he's based in the hegemon of Europe, namely Germany. He's also personally hegemon of an organization called the Global E-Sustainability Initiative, and I will ask you to say more about it, and I think you will. But for the moment, let me just say it's an association of major IT companies, names like Samsung, Telecom, and more, but you will say more about this. But I'm extremely grateful that you are here, and I think it's very important for what we plan to do here. I don't want to talk long now, although I do like to talk very long, but I want to add a few more words. First, I want to say that I'm equally grateful for Rob Axtell to be here, whom I happen to know since a long time, but actually I knew your PhD thesis before we met. So, you know, it's always nice when you first know something about the thinking of a scholar, and then you meet the guy, and you realize that he's still as smart as when he wrote this thing, and he's still not giving up. So he's still at the forefront of what's happening with very, very large models of social, socio-economic, and more systems. Again, I think you will speak for yourself. I guess we met the first time in Sicily, wasn't it? At this center out there, which is, I'm not going to detail the connection beyond science, but it's Sicily. It's a wonderful place. So it was good meeting you there. Let me say a few things about what's happening here, and no, let's say what can happen here. We'll see what it will really happen. And I want to explain with two stories, and the stories don't start with computing. The first story starts with mathematics. Long ago, the French Minister of Education visited one of these, you know, world-class, top-notch mathematics institutes that they have in Paris, and asked one of the most famous algebraists of those times, what can I do for your research? And the French mathematician says, make sure we have enough chalk. You know, just to be able to write on the blackboard. There's something important about this remark. Leave us alone, let us think. We don't need a lot. Today, of course, very few people would dare giving that answer, but it's still an important answer. The second story, which is connected, comes from a meeting I had also some time ago with the general manager of the lab that IBM runs in Switzerland, in a small place called Rüschlikon. There's cows out there. You know, it looks like the Swiss postcards look. And there's this little white building, and there's not many people working there. But when I met him, he had just cashed in 2 Nobel Prizes for his institute. And so I asked him, in his opinion, what was the great advantage he had against universities who were much larger, would like to make at least as many Nobel per decade than he did. And he said, you know, the first thing is we have small groups. We are not a lot of people. And we judge the people, not the projects. The people have to report twice a year on what they are doing, and they're completely free to change their plans. They cannot start without a plan. They have to say what they want to do. If somebody wants more than 7 people, he is out. We are not interested in people who want teams larger than 7. And then they have a little program, and they get whatever they need in terms of not only chalk, actually access to computers and all these fancy technologies. And they report. And both Nobel Prizes happened because at some stage, the principal investigator came to me and said, you know, I had this idea and this plan, but actually there's something strange there, and I would like to pursue it. It's not our original plan, it's something somewhat different. And I said, of course, go ahead. And if I had said, stick to your initial proposal, would not have gotten the Nobel. I think it's an important point, and it's important for what happens here right now. But before I go into that, third and final story, I once met a man who had a very interesting task from the Nobel Committee in Stockholm. His task was to go and investigate research institutes that had made several major breakthroughs in their field. Not one breakthrough, several. And then compare them with the institute that had made only one major breakthrough, and see whether he would find out something. And of course I asked, what did you find out? And he said very little, because, you know, all these kind of places, they have tons of money, they have very smart people, it's very competitive, the usual things. But there are two things that I did notice. The first, and this resonates with what the IBM guy says, which resonates with what the mathematician in France said, they had small groups. They worked in small groups of people thinking together. And second, if I would sit in the canteen and listen to what people talk about, in the places that continued to make breakthrough, they would talk about the scientific puzzles and challenges they were dealing with. And you know, they would ask their neighbor, so how is it advancing with your conjecture? And what's happening to your plan you had 3 months ago? This sort of conversation. And the places that did just one breakthrough were places where in the canteen they would say, wouldn't you by chance have a spare office for me? And you know, I got this really cool computer. They will talk about resources. I was in Brussels some years ago at one of these meetings they do there on science, and I will never forget the moment when during a break, one participant told me, Carlo, let's be realistic. The people are here for the money. I think he was wrong. Guido was there, and I think he was not there for the money, and there were a few more where I think they were not there for the money. We need the money, of course, and we need lots of resources. But what I would like to see happening here in the coming hours and days is real conversations, face to face, between a few people who basically enjoy thinking together and actually like thinking together about something important that makes a difference. In this spirit, before we start, I would like to ask everybody to simply come closer to this podium. I would prefer to have a setting where we sit in a circle, but that's too much of a hassle to destroy the whole arrangement here. But we will only continue after the last lines, and I mean the last 7 lines, are empty. Sorry for the terrorist act, but it will happen.
So thank you, Carlo, that you have this beautiful image. I was there a little bit for the moment, but no, you're right. And okay, so there will be a microphone around, so...
So as soon as the last 7 lines are empty, I will pass the word to Luis, and then to Rob, and then we'll start talking with each other. Whilst the lines are being emptied, I just want to be clear about why I made the initial remarks. Because we are part of the process in which the European Union has begun to spend billions, and I mean many billions, and will spend more billions in the years to come to advance computing technology. I hope this will not be in the press, but I think there's a clear and present danger that these billions will be spent in a mindless way. I'm here because I would like to contribute to spending these billions in a mindful way. And that's why I'm so glad that in this room are some of the people who can really contribute to this, probably even more than me. I'm somehow obliquely entering this. I'm not a computing person, though I love mathematics and computers. But for the moment, that's all I want to say. There is 2 projects represented here, European projects, the Center of Excellence for Global System Science, and the Dolphins project. And in the Center of Excellence, a big shift is happening from what was the original plan to what we are going to do now. And keeping in mind my story from the IBM guy, I think this is to be welcome. But it's also an opportunity. We can shape things. We will hear more about dolphins in the course of the meeting. For the moment, enough from me for the introductory part, and I pass the word to Luis.